Imagine waking up to find your hometown crumbling, factories shuttered, farms abandoned, schools closing their doors forever, streets once filled with life now echo with silence. This isn't a dystopian novel. It's happening right now across America because of policies that were supposed to put America first, but instead have left entire states gasping for economic air. Trump's 2025 tariffs, broader and more aggressive than anything we've seen before, have triggered a financial unraveling that few are talking about until today. We're diving deep into the 10 states being pushed toward bankruptcy, exposing the brutal realities behind the headlines. If you care about where America is heading, if you believe that understanding the truth matters now more than ever, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're pulling back the curtain, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Trump's 2025 tariffs have devastated Michigan's auto industry, slapping a 35% tax on imported auto parts, steel, and aluminum. The Motor City economy, heavily reliant on affordable supply chains, buckled almost immediately. Ford and GM laid off over 35,000 workers by late summer, and car prices rose by an average of $2,200. Statewide unemployment soared from 5.1% to 9.3% in 8 months. With consumer spending collapsing, Michigan faces a $3.2 billion budget shortfall, threatening pensions, education, and health care. Cities like Detroit, Flint, and Saginaw, still recovering from previous recessions, are bracing for municipal bankruptcies. Economists project that without massive federal bailouts, Michigan's GDP could contract by 6% annually over the next 3 years, ushering in another era of population decline and urban blight. If trends continue, Michigan could resemble the economic wastelands of the 1980s. But this time, recovery may take decades. Iowa's farming economy is collapsing under the weight of Trump's 2025 tariffs. After China retaliated with 50% duties on U.S. soybeans, pork, and corn, Iowa's $10 billion export economy took a direct hit. In 2025 alone, farm incomes plunged 42% according to the Iowa Farm Bureau. More than 1,500 farms filed for bankruptcy, leading to a domino effect on rural banks and supply businesses. Property values dropped 18% statewide, gutting tax revenue. With less funding, schools are shutting down, rural hospitals are closing, and entire towns are depopulating. Forecasts suggest Iowa could lose 8% of its rural population by 2030. Without strong state intervention, hundreds of counties could become financial ghost zones where basic services cease to exist. The future looks bleak. The very agricultural foundation of Iowa is eroding, and there are few alternative industries ready to replace the economic engine lost. Wisconsin's dairy and manufacturing sectors are spiraling due to 2025's steep tariffs. Mexico and Canada, Wisconsin's top dairy customers, slapped retaliatory tariffs on cheese and milk, cutting demand by 40%. Meanwhile, increased steel tariffs boosted production costs for manufacturing firms by 25%. Over 2,000 dairy farms have closed, and more than 10,000 manufacturing jobs have evaporated in just 12 months. The state's unemployment rate surged to 8.7%, and rural counties are reporting a record number of mortgage defaults. With a projected $2.1 billion deficit looming, governor-led austerity measures could mean slashing infrastructure repairs, education, and Medicaid expansion plans. If no corrective action is taken, Wisconsin faces not only a rural crisis, but also an industrial one, losing its position as a national manufacturing hub. Some economists warn that without serious diversification, Wisconsin could resemble the Rust Belt collapse of the late 20th century, but on a much larger scale. Ohio's economy, once a symbol of American industrial might, is buckling again under Trump's 2025 tariffs. The 30% steel and aluminum duties have jacked up manufacturing costs across the state by an estimated $3.4 billion, according to the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. Major employers like Whirlpool and Goodyear have announced layoffs totaling more than 18,000 workers. Agricultural tariffs have compounded the crisis, cutting corn and soybean revenues by 38%. With a declining tax base and ballooning welfare needs, Ohio is staring down a $3 billion budget shortfall for fiscal year 2026. Urban centers like Cleveland and Youngstown, already struggling with poverty, are expected to see surging homelessness rates. Long-term projections suggest that Ohio's workforce could shrink by 10% over the next decade. Without a major economic overhaul, Ohio risks falling into a chronic cycle of population loss, decaying infrastructure, and declining life expectancy, a full-blown social and financial crisis. Pennsylvania's steel towns are feeling déjà vu, but worse. Trump's 2025 tariffs caused steel prices to spike 35%, slashing demand and leading to over 12,000 layoffs across Pittsburgh, Bethlehem, and Allentown. Meanwhile, farmers in central Pennsylvania lost key international markets for dairy and grain, with exports falling by $1.1 billion. Combined with reduced coal exports, Pennsylvania's GDP shrank by 2.5% in 2025, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. State tax revenues plunged by $900 million, forcing emergency spending cuts in education and public safety. Rural hospitals are shutting down at record rates. Financial experts predict that if the current trajectory holds, Pennsylvania could face a Detroit-style municipal bankruptcy in at least 6 cities by 2030. Without dramatic new investments in technology and green energy, Pennsylvania's manufacturing and agricultural backbones will crumble, and an entire generation could be forced to flee for better opportunities elsewhere. If you're still with us, first of all, thank you. It's not easy to hear how badly some states are suffering, but it's critical that we stay informed. I want to hear from you. Which state's situation shocked you the most so far? Are you seeing signs of economic collapse where you live? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and your experiences help shape the stories we tell. Also, if there's another topic you want us to tackle, maybe a deeper dive into solutions or what these states could do to recover, let me know. And hey, if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find out the truth and keeps powerful conversations like this going. Nebraska, largely dependent on agriculture, has been blindsided by the 2025 trade wars. Trump's tariffs provoked retaliation that hit beef, corn, and soybean exports hard, reducing Nebraska's farm income by 48% in a single year, per USDA estimates. Bankruptcies are exploding, with over 900 farms liquidating assets since January. Property tax revenues, critical for school funding, have fallen by 15%, forcing rural school districts to consolidate or close. The state is facing a $1.4 billion deficit, and austerity measures are likely to hit Medicaid and transportation budgets next. Financial experts warn that without intervention, Nebraska could see an economic depression worse than the 1980s farm crisis. Urbanization won't solve the problem either. Major cities like Omaha are already feeling strain from unemployed rural migrants. By 2030, large swaths of Nebraska could become depopulated economic wastelands, fundamentally altering the state's demographic and financial landscape. Indiana's economy, heavily reliant on both manufacturing and agriculture, is crumbling fast under Trump's 2025 tariff regime. A 30% increase in steel and aluminum prices crushed automotive and appliance manufacturers, while China's retaliatory agricultural tariffs wiped out 45% of Indiana's soybean exports. The second quarter of 2025, Indiana had lost 25,000 manufacturing jobs and saw farm incomes cut in half. With state tax revenue falling short by over $1.8 billion, Indiana is slashing budgets for public universities, roads, and rural health care. Analysts at the Indiana Business Research Center warn that this could permanently dent Indiana's competitiveness in attracting new industries. Without urgent diversification into tech and clean energy, Indiana risks becoming a permanently low-skill, low-wage economy. Already, younger workers are fleeing the state, signaling a future where Indiana's labor force shrinks dramatically, undermining the economic engine that once powered cities like Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, and Evansville. South Dakota's reliance on agriculture and small manufacturing made it especially vulnerable to 2025's tariff chaos. China's 75% retaliatory tariff on American pork and soybeans devastated local farms, cutting agricultural income by 50% in just 8 months, according to the South Dakota Department of Agriculture. With family farms collapsing, small towns are losing population faster than at any time in state history. Property tax revenue has dropped 20%, forcing cuts to essential services like education and public safety. The state is projecting a $700 million deficit for 2026. Moreover, South Dakota's tourism sector, dependent on low prices and strong consumer spending, is sagging as inflation eats into household budgets. By 2030, experts predict that half of South Dakota's rural counties could be designated economically distressed areas, eligible for federal emergency aid. Without bold investment in new industries, South Dakota could become a patchwork of ghost towns. Missouri is feeling the crushing weight of tariffs on multiple fronts. Agricultural exports, especially soybeans and pork, fell by 47% in 2025, per the Missouri Department of Economic Development. Manufacturing hubs like St. Louis and Kansas City are also hemorrhaging jobs due to increased costs on steel and aluminum. Over 18,000 layoffs have hit the state, and small business bankruptcies are at a 25-year high. Missouri's budget deficit ballooned to $2.3 billion, forcing deep cuts to higher education, Medicaid, and rural development programs. Financial analysts warn that persistent deficits could lead to the first municipal bankruptcies in Missouri's history. If these trends continue, suburban flight will intensify, eroding city tax bases and hollowing out urban centers. Long-term projections suggest that Missouri's GDP could shrink by 5% over the next 5 years, an economic contraction not seen since the Great Depression. North Dakota's oil and agriculture-driven economy has been hammered by Trump's 2025 tariffs and the subsequent trade wars. With China and Europe imposing steep retaliatory tariffs, wheat and soybean exports crashed by 52%, while oil equipment costs soared due to tariffs on imported machinery parts. As a result, oil production slowed by 15%, eliminating thousands of high-paying jobs. The state's $1 billion surplus in 2024 has flipped to a projected $1.5 billion deficit for 2026. Rural hospitals and schools are closing at an alarming rate, and over 1,200 farms have gone bankrupt since January. Economists warn that the downturn could reverse 20 years of growth fueled by the Bakken oil boom. If commodity prices remain depressed and investment dries up, North Dakota faces the real possibility of depopulation, with young workers fleeing for better opportunities elsewhere and leaving behind aging, unsustainable communities. What we're witnessing isn't just economic hardship, it's the slow, painful dismantling of the American dream for millions, farms abandoned, cities deserted, futures rewritten. And yet, in understanding this collapse, there's also power. The power to demand better, to fight for smarter policies, and to rebuild stronger. If this video opened your eyes, please share it with someone who needs to hear the truth. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't yet, and make sure you turn on notifications, because the next few years are going to decide the fate of America as we know it. Stay aware, stay engaged, and above all, stay hopeful. Until next time.